Welcome back and thank you for tuning in to Naijha Speaks. I'm Naijha Wright Brown, contributing for Jane Unchained News, co-owner of the Land of Kush Vegan Soul Bistro in Baltimore, Maryland, and executive director of the Black Vegetarian Society. The history of infectious disease is intricately tied to the way humanity has changed how animals live. This is according to our guest today, Dr. Michael Greger, a physician, New York Times bestselling author of How Not to Die, the How Not to Die cookbook, and How Not to Diet, infectious disease specialist, internationally recognized professional speaker on public health, and founder of nutritionfacts.org. Dr. Greger, thank you for being with us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. In fact, I didn't know that. I've eaten at the Land of Kush. I love that restaurant.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for that shout out.
I used to live in D.C., and so I was right next door. Unfortunately, I'm on the other coast now, but yeah, that's exciting.
Awesome. Dr. Greger, you are working very hard to make sure we have all the necessary information to keep us informed about nutrition. So I do appreciate you taking the time out from your busy schedule to talk to us this evening. You stated that the history of infectious disease is intricately tied to the way humanity has changed how animals live. Let's talk about that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
Oh, yeah. Well, so, if you look historically in terms of where human diseases have come from, you realize that all of our major human infectious diseases came from the domestication of animals. So tuberculosis, for example, came from the domestication of goats. Measles also came from goats or sheep. Smallpox seems to have been a result of camel domestication. You domesticated pigs and got whooping cough, and domesticated chickens and got typhoid fever, and domesticated ducks and got influenza. Leprosy came from water buffalo, the common cold from cattle or horses. How often did wild horses have the opportunity to sneeze into humanity's collective face until they were broken and bridled, right? Until then, the common cold was presumably only common to them. Well, they may say, wait a second. We domesticated animals thousands of years ago. Why has there been this unprecedented emergence over the last few decades of hundreds of new emerging infectious diseases? Well, that's because we are changing the way animals live on a global scale. HIV/AIDS came from the butchering of primates in the bushmeat trade in Africa. Mad cow disease from turning natural herbivores like cows and sheep into carnivores and cannibals. SARS and COVID-19 traced back to the exotic wild pet trade and animal trade in these live wet markets. But our last pandemic, swine flu in 2009, arose not from some backwater wet market in Asia, but was largely made in the USA on pig operations here in the United States. Thankfully, swine flu only killed about 500,000 people, but the next time we might not be so lucky.
So right now, COVID-19 is officially topping the charts as the United States top killer over cardiovascular disease. Is that correct?
Well, this has only happened twice in 100 years apart. So, in 1918, the number one killer was pandemic flu. But from 1919 to 2019, every single year, the number one killer of men and women was heart disease. And only now, at least 2020, it's flipped. But then we'll go back to dying from heart disease as soon as we can suppress this through sufficient vaccination.
Well, that's why we're here. We're going to talk about what the nutrition facts are really. But, one of the things that we need to do is we need to stop eating meat. You predicted this pandemic in 2008. You did a talk, 1 hour lecture from my understanding. So on top of going to nutritionfacts.org to arm ourselves with science-based nutrition information that you provide us for free, what more should we all be doing now?
Yeah, in terms of pandemic prevention, the riskiest practices are the so-called factory farming practices. When we, overcrowd thousands of animals, even tens of thousands of animals into these cramped, filthy football field-sized sheds to lie beak to beak or snout to snout atop their own waste. It's just a breeding ground for diseases. The sheer numbers of animals, the overcrowding, the stress crippling their immune system, the ammonia from the decomposing waste burning their lungs, lack of fresh air, lack of sunlight. You put all these factors together, what you have is really a perfect storm environment for the emergence and spread of so-called super strains of influenza. We don't tend to shore up the levees until after disaster strikes, and it may take a pandemic that kills millions before we realize the true cost of cheap chicken.
Millions. Oh my, I don't think we have time for that. Millions. In late January, you hosted a 1-hour webinar, The Role of Diet in Racial Health Disparities. Why was that webinar so needed? Why did you do that?
Well, look, even before COVID-19, there were these, as long as public health stats have been collected, there have been these extreme health disparities between Black and white Americans in terms of hypertension, in terms of prostate cancer, diabetes, kidney disease. And what COVID-19 really did was just highlight this pre-existing problem. And so part of the health disparities from COVID in terms of racial lines was these pre-existing conditions, the higher rates of diabetes and obesity and heart disease and high blood pressure. These are the underlying comorbid conditions that so increase your risk of an extreme course of COVID-19, partially to explain why we have such higher fatality rates. You say, well, wait a second, what led to these disparities in health in the first place? And so that is something I really wanted to do a deep dive on. And so that was the source of the webinar. The webinar was recorded. We have all the videos. They're going to come out on nutritionfacts.org, but we actually have them all together for a free download. And so I encourage people to go. I think it's nutritionfacts.org/webinars. And you can click down to the disparities one. And kind of spoiler alert, it turns out, so you can imagine all sorts of different potential reasons, right? In terms of systemic racism, access to healthcare, socioeconomic factors, but even Black Americans who are as wealthy, have as good health insurance, kind of on down the list still, do poorly based on leading healthcare indicators compared to white Americans. You say, wait a second, what is going on there? And what the research seems to show is actually differences in food culture can play a role. So Black Americans eat more of what's called, in the literature they call a Southern style diet. Even in Chicago or anywhere in the country, and the Southern style diet, which kind of came from kind of the slave foods of
right,
all the things that that are kind of low value foods,
intestines and chitterlings and stuff,
right, all the stuff that nobody else wanted,
right.
And now has morphed into tending to eat more sugar-sweetened beverages and fried meats and things. Now, look, there's certainly, amazingly, some of the healthiest foods are within that tradition as well. Black-eyed peas and collard greens. And there's all sorts of good stuff there. Right. But in general, that Southern-style diet is contributing to this just plague of chronic disease. And so, for example, if you take Black and white men and you control for diet, all of a sudden the healthcare, the prostate cancer disparities disappear. And so it's because they were eating different diets that was contributing to this disparity beyond all the other factors. And so that's why. And so basically I said, you're going to love the last video in this, where I basically say, you know what we need? We need these vegan Black-owned restaurants all over the place to be doing cooking, exactly. We need Land of Kush. We need more, and we need them to do cooking classes in the community. We need them to get out there and really kind of reclaim the heritage of West Africa, which had the healthiest diet there is, this plant-based diet. and only started being fed this garbage later on, and we should all be looking back to that ultra healthy plant-based diet for our for the true roots.
I'm so glad that you said that, because folks tend to believe like we've always been eating like this, but we haven't. We've eaten whole food, plant-based, and we continue to do that. Tracy McCorder did a very good job in her publication of the African American Vegan Starter Guide that talked about all that. So thank you for mentioning that. What are some of the challenges that you're still facing in spreading the important messages? You have a heck of a site, nutrition.org. I got to show everyone this site. Look,
Nutrition Facts.
Dr. Greger has a wealth of information at nutrition.org. Let me tell you, nutritionfacts.org. Let me tell you, you can be there for weeks just looking at stuff. You have everything on this site. So if you haven't checked this site out, nutritionfacts.org, Dr. Greger is the GOAT, the greatest of all time to have done it. So you need to check this site out. Yeah, health is your wealth. It is your health, your wealth. I know a lot of people driving fancy cars, still eating at McDonald's, So you got to fuel your body with the best, most optimal fuel if you want to avoid being sick. So what are these challenges? You're spreading the message. There's no corporate budget driving promotion about the advances in the field of nutrition. You say that on your site. What challenges are you facing spreading the good word?
Well, yeah, no corporate influence on our side. We don't accept any corporate monies. We don't have ads. We're not selling anything. Just put up as a public service. But what we're facing is a literally $1 trillion industry. That's the processed food industry. If you think of all like consumer goods, what's the one thing people have to eat, have to do every day, have to buy every day, essentially, and that's food. There's so much money to be made. It's in these corporations' best interest to muddy the waters so people just kind of throw up their hands and eat whatever crap is put in front of them. Instead of sticking to the science. And there's remarkable consistency going back decades in the peer-reviewed medical literature as to the core tenets of healthy eating, and that's a diet centered around whole plant foods. And so it's just why are millions of people drinking brown sugar water? It's because they have these massive advertising budgets to lull people into these behaviors, but just like where's most of the liquor advertising? Where are the most fast food joints per square mile? Where's the most cigarette ads? Right? It's in communities of color. Right? They are targeting these communities where there used to be for menthol cigarettes, and now it's for the junkiest food out there. So we really need to to reclaim control out of our communities' lives, of our families' lives, and not let these corporate overlords make decisions as life and death important as to what to feed ourselves and our family, because they don't have our best interests at heart.
Thank you for that. What should organizations and companies like Land of Kush, Black Veg Society, what should we be doing? What would be your advice? So we're spreading the message. We're doing the best that we can.
There it is. It's getting that message out there, right? So, we don't have that gazillion dollar budget. You're not going to see an ad for sweet potatoes in the Super Bowl anytime soon, right? There's so much money to be made in fresh fruits and vegetables, right? They go bad. It's like the worst thing to sell. Right? You want a snack cake that sits on the shelves for a few weeks, right? That's how you make money. Dirt cheap, sell people, sugar water for a couple bucks a bottle, right? That's where all the money is. So look, they got the money. They can churn that profit around. They can get out the word. What do we have? We got people power, right? We just got to get out there and share our stories. What kind of, revolutionary, benefits that we found in our own lives by eating healthier, and we can make our communities, we can get into our spread the word in our churches, and just person by person get the word out there, potluck, sharing food, whatever it takes to kind of counter the rest of the world that just wants us to sit on the couch and eat Cheetos.
And we're definitely going to promote nutritionfacts.org more. Yes, Marlo, you agree with us. We need more Black, vegan, and vegetarian restaurants. You don't get to come downtown, so you wish you had one in North or Northeast Baltimore. Well, Atlanta Kush is working on a East Baltimore project, so we're hoping to get that finished in another year and a half. So hopefully that'll be close enough for you. Thank you. And thank you, Tina. We do need vegan restaurant and fast foods that are vegan, none here. So people have to get out there. We need more stores, more vegan options. Now, this is about the nutrition facts. What really are they? So we can't have you leave or go anywhere until you answer some of these questions, which you probably heard before, but you're going to hear them again. I want to dispel some nutrition misfacts that people get hit with when they start to practice veganism. Protein. You're not going to get any protein. No protein for you. Can you talk to folks about protein real quick?
Yeah, anyone who doesn't know how to get protein on a plant-based diet doesn't know beans. Literally. Beans, split peas, chickpeas, lentils, right? These are the plant protein superstars of the kingdom. And so, so I encourage people to eat legumes in the daily diet. So that could be lentil soup or, black bean burritos or hummus or, there's all, myriad uses. How
do you deal with flatulence? I mean, I know I love legumes. I don't really have a problem with legumes, but with black beans, I love them so much, but I have this bloating flatulence problem. How do I overcome that? Because you hear that.
Some people got to start slow. So it's all about your good gut bugs. So it's the combination of those prebiotics in those legumes that are feeding your gut microbiome. And so if you have bad bugs, if you have what's called dysbiosis, then you're feeding the growth of bad bugs. And so then they can go and cause havoc. And so the way that we switch over and have the best of both worlds is we can slowly increase our fiber intake. So not everyone can switch overnight. But studies have found that and it can start as slow as a spoonful of chickpeas a day or something. And then slowly ramp up. You'll foster the growth of good gut bacteria. They'll force out the bad. And so it's just a matter of slowly stepping up. And studies have shown that when people do that, they can avoid those kind of those uncomfortable symptoms.
B12, you get this one a lot. It's not made by plants or animals, but people feel that, okay, they eat meat, they're going to get the B12. You're vegan, you can't eat meat, you're not going to get it. How do we get it?
Yeah, so you're right. It's not made by plants, not made by animals either. Made by little microbes that blanket the earth, and so there are microbes in the stomachs of certain of animals, and they give B12. Actually, supplement the feed of animals with B12, so it ends up in their flesh. But it's critically important to get a regular, reliable source of vitamin B12 from somewhere. I mean, we used to get B12, drinking out of a mountain stream or well water or something, but now we chlorinate the water supply to kill off any bacteria. So don't get a lot of B12 in our water anymore. Don't get a lot of cholera either. That's a good thing that we live in a nice sanitary world. Our fellow great apes get all the B12 they need eating bugs, dirt, and feces. I prefer supplements, frankly. 2,000 micrograms of what's called cyanocobalamin, which is a type of B12 once a week. All you need, $5 a year. All the B12 you need. You can also get it in B12 fortified foods. Super easy, but critically important for anyone eating a healthy diet.
Thank you for that. To soy or not to soy, or soy protein isolates? That's the $1 million question. I know Atlanta Kush, we have soy products. I've been consuming soy since we were calling it bean curd. What are and you have a nice video on that, but I want to hear your short version.
Oh my God, I got dozens of videos on that. And the answer is absolutely. Soy is a healthful food in terms of decreasing breast cancer risk, improving bone strength, on down the list. Reducing our risk of prostate cancer. And so I encourage people to eat soy. There are healthier and less healthy soy foods. The ideal is whole soy products. So you actually buy soybeans in a can. You need edamame, the immature green soybeans in a can. Tempeh, a very healthy source. You can see the individual soybeans in there, but even tofu. I mean, soybeans are so healthy. You can remove half the fiber, half the minerals, and make something like tofu, and still have a super healthy food. But in general, rather than getting your soy drinking soy milk, I'd like them to actually eat a more a food that's less processed.
All right, there you go, folks.
So
Oils.
soy milk is the healthiest type of milk. So I mean, if you're gonna have
Yes.
any, but definitely, but
why is it the healthiest? Why is soy milk the healthiest?
Fortified soy milk has about 8 grams of protein per cup, where something like rice milk, oat milk, there's not a lot of, they need to process out the protein because it gives an off taste.
Okay.
But they found, and so you actually look, there really isn't much there. That same amount of, calcium, vitamin D, and all the things you'd expect. And as a source of soy, it has these isoflavones, which are these compounds, which we think is what, is responsible for the health benefits associated with soy.
Awesome. Now the oils. The no oil, no salt, no sugar, but oils. Coconut oil, and I know you say it's not good. Let's talk about that. And coconut oil versus coconut water. I love to drink coconut water. Is that bad?
Coconut water is great. Okay. You're making me thirsty. It's delicious. No. So it's the fat. It's the coconut oil in coconut. When separated out from the coconut, it actually does raise your bad cholesterol, your LDL cholesterol. In fact, as much as something like lard does. Wow. And so I encourage people to minimize their intake. Now, look, it doesn't matter what you eat on your birthday, holiday, special occasions. But on a day-to-day basis, I would encourage people to eat healthy. And that means reducing one's intake of saturated fat. And there are these rare tropical oils, coconut oil, palm kernel oil, which actually have saturated fat. Most saturated fat comes from dairy, chicken are the two main sources, and junk food. But there are those, and the reason junk food is because they use those tropical oils in those products. So not just eating a plant-based diet, but a plant-based diet low in tropical oils. So basically a whole food plant-based diet, not eating a lot of junk.
Awesome. Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, or any scientifically made alternative burger. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, these are fantastic stepping stone foods. I mean, look, not everyone can go all kale quinoa overnight. People want those same tastes and textures and flavors they'd had growing up. And so this offers them a healthier option. So you walk into a Burger King, oh my God, an Impossible Whopper, way healthier than a regular Whopper. Now, would it be healthier not to walk in the Burger King in the first place? Okay, fine. Right. I mean, it's better to eat whole foods whenever possible. But the fact that it offers these convenient options for people is just miraculous. I'm so glad these options are out there. I'd encourage people not to stall there and continue improving their diet, including more whole plant foods in their diet. But these are great alternatives, and hopefully will help move people in a plant-based direction.
Absolutely. We all have our stages. You're hearing it live from Dr. Michael Greger. Let's talk about upcoming projects. You have the Daily Dozen app. How can we get to that? Is that on the nutritionfacts.org? Can you talk to us about that?
So you can get the app on iPhone, Android. It's called Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, free app. Everything's free at nutritionfacts.org. And it's just, that's my Daily Dozen checklist of all the healthiest of healthy foods. I encourage people to fit into their daily routine. So, greens every day, the healthiest vegetable, berries every day, the healthiest fruits, a tablespoon of ground flax seeds, quarter teaspoon of turmeric, the best beverages, the best sweeteners, how much exercise to get every day. Just again, try to motivate people to try to see how many check boxes they can click off on a day-to-day basis and track their progress. And that's all based on my Daily Dozen checklist and How Not to Die. The book that's, I just heard from the publisher, it sold 980,000 copies, or almost at 1 million copies.
Congratulations!
Which is really exciting. And so, go to your local public library when it opens and grab yourself a copy and enjoy.
Awesome. Dr. Greger, if you weren't doing this work, what would you be doing?
I'd be a researcher. I mean, the reason I do this work is because I'm I couldn't do any of this work if there weren't people, millions of people, slaving away in basement labs somewhere, doing the hard work of research. I mean, in my books, on my videos, I talk about this study here. In one sentence, I address 3 different studies. Each one of those studies, could have been took 10 years of dozens of people's lives to put together. And then we have this amazing result that we can improve humanity with. They're the ones who really deserve all the credit. And I would love to be one of them. But unfortunately, I don't have that luxury because so many people are dying from these preventable, arrestable, reversible conditions. We just got to get the science out there.
Exactly. How do we stay connected with you, Dr. Greger?
They can come to nutritionfacts.org. That's the website of the nonprofit that I'm a part of, and has all our social media, all the contact information, and encourage people to check it out. I mean, the good news is we have tremendous power over our health, destiny, and longevity. The vast majority of premature death and disability is preventable with a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle behaviors.
Again, I appreciate you taking your time out to talk to us today. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, one of them being nutritionfacts.org. We appreciate your support. A Well-Fed World, Eat the Change, Women Funders in Animal Rights, Mercy for Animals, and individual viewers just like yourself. Again, Dr. Greger, please be well, be safe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And everyone, nutritionfacts.org, nutritionfacts.org. Get the book, How Not to Diet, and how to live in this pandemic, right? How to survive the pandemic. All great books, and we need to arm ourselves with this information, and we need to stop future pandemics. And the way we're going to do that is to make the best food choices possible by not eating meat. Whole food, plant-based diet. Thank you again for tuning in. Be well, be safe, and blessings.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work.
All right. Have a good one.